advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Oh, boy. Here we go, hour 2. I'm getting exhausted, Shane. What should I made myself some coffee, so hopefully that'll work.
That should help you.
Yeah, not really. All right, Mark.
How you doing, Carl?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
All right, we got Mark Virginis here. Mark, I know you've got this disclaimer, and I'm already half asleep, but I'll let you give it anyhow.
You're so kind. I'm an investment advisor representative offering securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC. Member FINRA, SIPC. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Name of my firm is Mirus, M-I-R-U-S, think of miracle. Mirus Financial Partners, here in Lancaster, but I'm licensed in about 16 different states, a little bit different than you.
And you posted on Facebook, which made me laugh, that you'd gone to the office to avoid kids and barking dogs. and my reply was that half the fun in this show for me is to listen to the background and the callers call in and listen for the funny things we hear in the background. Now, one of the ones I hear quite often is like the wife or the husband in the background, like whispering, like, psh, ask, don't forget to say. Psh, psh, no, that's not what happened. No. And then you can hear the kids sometimes. And every once in a while we get somebody who clearly is like standing behind a jet engine as they try to call in. I don't know why a guy who works at the airport, and directs traffic on the tarmac would be calling at the same time, which kind of concerns me. But anyhow, I brought you on, and I got some callers holding, so we're going to take them in a second because they have some legal questions. Then we'll clear the board, hopefully, to get a few financial questions in here. Okay. But we got a record-setting week here on Wall Street, so just give us a little recap. Then we'll grab a few legal questions, then we'll get back into the finances here. Yeah,
we have a record-setting week, and the market bottomed March 9th back in 2009. That was my birthday, so I feel very happy that we're still setting the record. We came all the way back yet today on my birthday, 5 years later. But anyway, so we gained everything back. You are seeing folks putting money to work. TD, I just saw someone, TD Ameritrade Investor Movement Index saw, with the week ending Wednesday on their calendar, the way they do this, they saw $7.14 billion move into stock funds, which the prior week was only $1.2 billion. So that's a huge move, and that's what I've been saying a lot, and I know you and I have been talking off air. Mm-hmm. Hedge funds and the average Joe Schmo out there has not invested yet. We're not seeing the volume in this market, but this market's carrying higher. Traders have been making a ton of money, not so much the average investor. It looks like we're getting the public to buy in on this, and once we get there, and as I told most of my clients, it's probably going to be time to sell. I just think this is a bear market rally. I still think things aren't as good as they need to be in the economy, and if you're getting in now, there's ways to get in now to get some good returns. However, you need to be cautious and be very selective in what you pick.
And I think I was telling you yesterday I was mumbling, and I know you were listening on Durgan yesterday a little bit about inflation. I want to talk about that in a minute, too. Let's take a couple of these callers and get them out of the way here. Russ, you got a workers' compensation question?
Yes, sir, Carl. My brother was hurt on the job a little over a year ago and was operated, and he's on workman's comp. And his employer more or less told him this week that he cannot accommodate him on the basis that the doctor let him go back to work. And so they told him that they couldn't use him. Mm-hmm. And he don't know what to do. He said he talked to the workman's comp people, and they said, well, you and your wife think about it. We'll give you a call, and we'll make an offer. We have a formula we go by. And he said he don't think he should do that, but he said he's not out to take him to the cleaners. He just wants what's just due his. He's got about 3 years that he would have been able to work till he's 66. Right. And he said he's not out to kill him, but he wants what's rightfully his. Yeah, let me. I told him he should get an attorney, but he don't really know what.
Okay, well, let me explain something to Russ, or to you, Russ, to your brother, Russ, or this feller. He doesn't quite understand how the world works, and so he thinks I'm not out to get them. Well, guess what? They're out to get him.
I told him that.
Number one. Number two, they have a pile of experts. They have actuaries. They have nurses. They have doctors. They have adjusters, mathematicians, They have an entire corporate structure designed to figure out how to pay out as little as possible to him. Mm-hmm. And they are going to try to pay him as little as they can get away with under the circumstance. Not pay him what's fair, not pay him what's right. And their formula doesn't mean beans, except that this is the cheapest we think we can get away with it without somebody actually figuring it out. So, and in workers' compensation, since the lawyer is a relatively inexpensive proposition, it's a 20% fee. In my experience, here's the other thing. They're going to tell him that they're going to want to commutate the injury and that they want him to settle for everything. It's possible to work out an arrangement where only a portion of the claim, the wage claim, is commutated or settled, but then he gets medicals for life, okay? Mm-hmm. So he's got to think a big picture here, and he's got to think about it in the context of a lawyer. So if you get him in touch with me off the air, I'd be happy to explain to him what he needs to do.
Okay, he won't be around until next week, but...
I'll still be here.
I'll tell you what, I'll tell him to give you a call then, because
and just so you know,
I told him he should have a lawyer, but he has all the paperwork from the doctor, and they told him that you have 20%. It's all you can lift over your head. That's it. And the rest of your life, not just
I had a guy, they offered this kid, I think they offered him like a $70,000 settlement in workers' comp thing. And by the time we were done a few weeks later, we had him up to 120. And my point on that is at 70, the kid was thinking about taking it because he thought that seemed good. And I remember saying, I'm not calculating that as good, and I'll explain to you why, and here's what we're going to do. And my point on it is, I just want to say, what people think is fair versus what everybody else gets, two different things. So there's your lesson for your brother, all right?
Okay, now do you handle that in Lancaster?
We will certainly handle it for him in the Lancaster office, yep.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Russ. 540-0580. Pete, you got a quick question here?
Yes, sir. That example of the guy in the bank when a robber comes in?
Yes.
I took some training about 10 years ago with a company out west called Comtech. Get proficient with my pistol. It was really good stuff. And they taught us in the classroom portion, you can't use a weapon to protect anyone other than your direct family.
No, that's not Pennsylvania law.
It's not okay. So that was more of a general national kind of thing. But they did say if you ever do get a situation like that, say you were in fear of your life, not protecting some stranger.
See,
I don't know if that makes sense.
They got it backwards because if you're fearing for your own life, then there might be a duty to retreat. But if you're afraid for somebody else's life, there's no duty to retreat. So the best way to say it was, I was afraid for both the teller and myself, and then you can have the best of both worlds.
All right, thanks, buddy. Appreciate your show.
Even better, don't say anything to the police until after we've sat down. 540-0580. Got a divorce question, Bill.
Yes. A friend of mine, she was notified by her husband that he was pursuing one of those quick divorces, like a 10. And what happened was she was in the process of a move, and she filed that paper by the date you have to file, to contest it. Mm-hmm. But she never received any notification, and then like a week or so later, she got a notification that the divorce went through. And she has medical problems and whatever that should be handled. And I just wondered if you think there's any way of like appealing that or anything, or should we contact you? Or
yeah, I would think she needs to move quickly. If it was entered improperly, then she can open it, but her ability to open it's going to fade with time, and I mean quickly. So, I mean, you need to call my office like yesterday.
Okay.
All right?
Will do.
717-241-6070. You got that? 717-241-6070?
Okay, thank you.
All right, when we get back from the break, I got Mark Virginis here. We're going to keep talking about financial things. If you guys got some estate planning, financial-style questions, you want to talk about hyperinflation, whether you should be hoarding gold, whatever, Mark will be here when we get back. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here with Mark Virginis. Mark, what else should we know? I mean, what are you thinking?
What am I thinking? Well, if people have their money in CDs, or as I like to call them, crummy decisions or certificates of depreciation, and they want to get into this market, or they think bonds are the way to go, you might want to just take a pause and give me a call at the office before you do that, because as you've been alluding to on Durgan as well as your own show, when interest rates start to rise, so if this economy is starting to come back, when interest rates rise, bonds fall.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's going to be a rude awakening for lots of folks out there who've had bonds for the last 5 years, who've made a nice chunk of change. They are going to be kind of puzzled that when they open their quarterly statement and they either have a negative or it didn't grow as much, and they're going to be calling their advisor or calling their E-Trade account or what have you, and trying to figure out why are my bonds falling. Well, I've been telling a lot of my clients, and we already made the decision several months ago, but to buy emerging market debt, which is debt or bonds outside the United States. These are the countries that are actually buying United States debt, as the Fed is doing. But also, if you go in emerging market, you might want to make sure you have it local currency. So it'll say like emerging market, local currency, emerging market, local denominated, or something of that nature, where you're not buying the U.S. dollar denominated debt. You're buying in that country's currency. Because, as you know, we have a strong dollar, so you don't want to own our dollar right now, especially on foreign debt. You rather own it in their currency. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is through a mutual fund that has proven themselves throughout the years, if not 5 to 10 years, that you can see a nice little track record. And there's a few out there that are very, very good at what they do.
Now, and of course, I've been talking about, I believe, this is just my belief, of course, that at some point here, we're due for some big belt of inflation because so much money's entered the economy in terms of liquidity with what the Fed has done with the quantum easings that have been going on again and again. But we haven't seen any what we call velocity of the money or turnover. But if these job numbers are actually right, and this is the beginning of it in my mind, which is things will start to heat up and inflation will bloom. And when inflation blooms, it's going to bloom very rapidly in this, and it's like a hothouse right now.
Yeah, I'm not a real big believer in the unemployment numbers yet, because I want to see what the sequester numbers come out. So I want to see, this time in April, I want to see what March's numbers are like before I start, having a party. But you're right about that hyperinflation is around the corner. What you're seeing prices go up, but wages are staying stagnant. This is my conspiracy theory out there. It's my own 2 cents, but I think that's what Obama put out there in his State of the Union. He wants to see the minimum wage increase. It's because he knows that wages have stayed stagnant, and there's this impending doom, and that's not what he wants to leave his presidency with hyperinflation going on, because Ben Bernanke, Uncle Ben, is supposed to be watching out for that and will save us all. And that, you're right, that's something around the corner, because there is tons and floods of money out there, QE infinity as it is now. But as I said earlier, I had listened to a Fed governor of the Philly Fed speak, and he thinks unemployment is going to be down at 7% by year end, which is fairly aggressive. But if he's right, inflation is something we have to look at. So you have to have TIPS, Treasury Inflation Protection. These are bonds issued by the government. TIPS in your portfolio. You need to have some precious metals, i.e. gold as well, in your portfolio. You need to have things that don't correlate with interest rate movements, and you need to think. You need to fix your roof before it leaks, because you can get whipsawed.
I have a graphic that I put up on Facebook called
Inflation. I saw that. That's pretty nice.
And I got it from a guy named Robert. I don't use his last name, but if you come to Facebook, you can find it. A lot of people shared it. But it's popcorn and soda, $6. Then there's an unhappy face saying, I only have $3, but everyone should have popcorn and soda. And then Ben Bernanke says, don't worry, I'll print the $3 for you. Then it's a happy face. Now I can get my soda. And then it goes to the next graphic. Popcorn and soda is now $10. And that's what people don't understand is if you give people money for something or create the ability to purchase something, the guy who's selling it simply increases the price, which is why, and this is a great, I don't know what the right term for this would be, right? Is this a macro or a micro? I guess it's a micro example. Colleges. So you can borrow debt to go to college, and it's guaranteed by the government.
Right.
As a result, college spending rises at a rate much faster than the general economy, and so the cost of tuitions have gone up, way up over the years, much faster than a lot of other costs.
Right.
Because the college goes, I can charge more, the lenders can pay more, but the lenders feel safe because, they let people borrow more because it's government-backed.
Right.
And so because there's, quote, cheap credit available to go to college or artificially cheapened money to go to college, college has become artificially more expensive than it should be.
That's exactly how I explain to my client. That's a great analogy. You must have been listening to me, but that's exactly what I tell my clients. Because if you extrapolate the government out of that equation, what would be the real cost of going to that school?
Right.
And you see it all the time, either it's USA Today or somebody puts out these reports that talks about the best value for your money or the best education for your dollar. Your college always scores extremely, extremely high. I think it's reasonably priced something like $12,000 or $10,000 a year, versus its private liberal, I shouldn't say liberal, private college counterparts like F&M or Gettysburg or Allegheny College, which is, as you know, they're over $40,000, $50,000, $60,000.
You threw my alma mater in there, Allegheny.
I know. Well, I went there for a year as well before I went to Pitt, so hey, it's a little bit of an alma mater for me too.
Well, all the great people from Allegheny didn't actually graduate. They have a list of famous alums, and that used to be the joke was that Clarence Darrow, for instance, graduated from. Well, I'm sorry, he didn't graduate. He went there for a bit. And William McKinley, he went there for Leonard. Ida Tarbell, I think she actually might have graduated from there. But my point on that was and Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails went there for about a year before his music overtook his college career.
We had my freshman year. We had the one girl from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. She decided to go. She was listed in the freshman book. And you know what it's really called on campus. But she was in there, and she was supposed to report, but she got the part in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, so she said, hey, I'm going to Hollywood. Screw this.
So let's talk about that. The freshman book, with the terrible nickname. The funny part about that is, right now, some other college kids who are much smarter than us turned it into something called Facebook.
There you go.
Jay, you're on with Carl and Mark.
Yeah, this one's for Mark, I guess, and I'm a rabble-rouser, so I want to rouse some rabble. Mark, you talk about investments, and I wish I had done more when I was younger, but I'm assuming that most of the people that work with you are people with a lot of disposable income. I would assume that people who are just about living paycheck to paycheck or just about, eking out enough to feed their family of 4 or 5 don't have all this disposable income.
Really.
Does the average blue-collar guy these days have a lot of disposable income, or
no?
What do we?
I have a lot of folks, whether they refer to me, they know me from the community, what have you. I have police officers as clients. I have firemen as clients. I have people who are just living so-called paycheck to paycheck. They come and say, I know I have to do this. I have to put more money away from retirement. I have to do something for my kids' school or college. How do I do that? And sometimes it might be just $50 a month into some type of investment plan or some financial plan that we have made. But it's usually that person who's doesn't want to be unemployed, doesn't want to take welfare, doesn't want to go on unemployment, will work 3 or 4 jobs just to make ends meet, will do what they need to do, and they just seek out, whether they hear me on the radio or they read an article in a magazine I did, and they say, I just need some professional guidance. And usually the conversation starts like this. What do you do? What's a financial advisor do? And then you go through the litany of it, and then they say, okay, how do I become a client of yours? What do I need to do? And then we go into that whole structure. But no, a lot of folks are comfortable. Don't get me wrong. A lot of my clients have lots of disposable income, and there are those folks that just want some direction and a game plan for the future, and they don't want a whole lot of hand holding. They just want someone they can bounce ideas off of.
Certainly wish I'd gone that route 30 or 40 years ago when I started working. Although at that time, my parents in Philly were lower middle class working folks. We were certainly we ate well and everything, but we didn't have a car or anything. Couldn't afford a car, and I never heard. Of course, I don't know if there were defined benefit plans then, pension plans, but you never heard much about investments at that level, or 401ks or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, you think early 80s when 401k really popped onto the scene, in late 70s, IRA 401k came out, and that's when you start seeing, the steel mills and all the big employers start flipping from a defined benefit to defined contribution type plan, and that's when investing started to become what it was, and then all of a sudden you started seeing a Fidelity or a Vanguard commercial. investing really has come a long, long way in the mutual funds. I mean, if you track it in variable annuities and you track that, you just see the flows of money that have come. It's just from the overall consumer getting to know the product and being exposed to the product, and therefore have some idea and some knowledge of what this means, and do I need to seek advice? Can I do it on my own, or what have you?
Well, I certainly wish I had somebody to put their foot down on me when I was younger.
All right.
I'm a crazy spender.
Good talking with you.
All right, all you little kids out there, pay attention. Mark's going to put his foot down on you.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make time. You can't go back and get time, and the power of compounding dollars is a good thing. Yeah,
actually, I was having this discussion with my 3-year-old son last night because he wanted me to buy him a train. And, of course, I told him I wasn't going to buy him a train. And then he suggested that I could buy it for his 4th birthday. And I said no. And he said, well, let's go back to my 3rd birthday then. And I'm like, I see your thought. I said, we all want to go back to our 3rd birthday, Anson, but it's not going to happen.
How apropos for me today.
Yes, right, exactly. And it's just funny because his theory was, okay, well, if we could go back to my birthday and give it to me then I would have it now. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly the way we would do it. I got to go to break here. Mark, when we come back, hopefully we get a few more financial geniuses on here with us.
No problem.
All right, Mark, we're back here with Mark Virginis. By the way, Mark, how would somebody get a hold of you if they actually wanted to, talk about their financial stuff without airing it for the whole radio listening audience?
Great. Well, they can reach me here at the office at 540. I'm sorry, listen to me. I'm giving your number. 509-4521. That's 509-4521. They, too, can find me on Facebook. Last name is spelled Virginis, V as in Victor, ERGENES, Mark Virginis. Or you can like and find me through my Facebook page, Mirus, MIRUS, Financial Partners. Or, again, of course, you can find me online at Mirus, MIRUS, FinancialPartners.com.
John, you're on with Carl and Mark.
Hey, how you doing, Carl and Mark?
Good.
I got a question about annuities.
Okay.
I had a bunch of surgeries, and I had to stop working about 12 years ago. And I'm checking into my retirement annuity. How do I know the balance they're giving me is what's in there? How do I know if it should be more or less?
Is it issued through insurance companies, or you're getting a statement from your employer?
It was through a union.
Through the union. That's a tough one, Carl, because it sounds like he's more of a pension, and it's in his annuity. And are you starting to draw on? Have you drawn on the income yet?
Yeah, I got the paperwork from them. I thought I used to get a statement every year saying what was in there and what growth and stuff, but I had brain tumors removed, so my memory comes and goes. So what I'm trying to find out is the information they're giving me accurate? Because I have to get all these doctors to do all this paperwork and stuff, and then they just turn you down, and they either turn you down or they say you could do something else, or something of that nature. So I'm thinking about just pulling it all out and putting it somewhere else, or you know what I mean?
Right.
So how do I know? With the way the market's been going up and down, and down, and people in their pensions losing all this money, like the state's school pension fund lost $58 million in 1 year. I mean, how do I know the numbers they're giving me is accurate?
You want to comment, Carl, or you want me to go ahead?
Well, I mean, go ahead and then I'll jump in.
First, typically that kind of annuity, that kind of retirement plan usually gives you a once-a-year statement. And it's usually end of the year. It'll come at your birthday, or maybe it was on your date of hire. So typically, when that statement used to come, is probably when it'll come in the future. My father had one through his steel mill out of Pittsburgh, and it was through Nationwide. And every first, second week of January is when he used to get his statement, and it would say this is what his accrued benefit is. If he retires at this age, or this age, or this age, this is what his income would look like. and they would say, they would state really clearly on the cover page, your pension made 6% this year, or made 7% or 8% or what have you. Typically, that's how it is. And if you have one of the older pieces of paper, I'm probably betting you there's a 1-800 number on there somewhere. Where and they were very helpful. Even when my dad passed, they were extremely helpful in getting everything straightened out with him. So I would say go to the 1-800 number of a former statement that you have, an older statement that you have, and just try to find out and see if they can send you some kind of duplicate statement for your own knowledge.
All right. I appreciate that, guys. Have a good day.
Good luck. And the other problem, Mark, is, if you don't trust, you've got to have some fiduciary relationship with this fund and hope that they are, reporting out the numbers accurately. But I would suspect somewhere, someplace, some pension fund has been inaccurate.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of my clients come in like, yeah, I think about retiring, and this job's been good to me, but there's some rumblings that we might merge, there's some rumblings of some layoffs, or maybe some international company might buy us. I'm like, well, first thing we need to do is get your money out of there. I'm like, you're eligible for a rollover to an IRA. Here's the advantages, here's the disadvantages, let's talk about it. But, if you leave your money in there, now you're a number because you're no longer there. You're not necessarily Mr. So-and-so because you can walk over and see the HR person.
Right.
So I'm all for creating flexibility and making the money yours. And, if you can get it out, get it out.
Interesting. Let's see. We'll take a couple more callers here. Jim, what's your question? Got Carl Rominger and Mark Virginis here.
Hello?
Yeah, Jim.
Hello? Okay, this is my problem. I was fired from my job this week. I signed an employee at will contract with the company, so I know that they can fire me for not really any reason. A customer called and complained and said that I made a sexual gesture to her, and they fired me on the spot. I talked to my boss. They reviewed the tapes and seen that it did not happen. Is there anything I can do legally to try to get my job back? And is there anything legally I can do for the lady who made this complaint that cost me my job?
Yes. Your sole remedy is to go to unemployment. If your employer won't give you back your job, then unemployment, and you can use the video as proof that there was no willful misconduct. So you'd be eligible for unemployment. As for the lady, if she made an untrue or false statement that economically damaged you, that's called libel or slander in this case because it's spoken. And so she defamed you with spoken slander. And, you could sue her. Now the question is whether you can get any money out of her or not, separate issue. Those are your options.
The only information that I have on her is a name. Am I able to file with just that?
You'd have to find her to sue her, so you'd have to do a little research to figure out who she is. All right?
All right.
All right, good luck. Let's see. Doug, you're on with Carl and Mark. What's going on?
Hey, Carl. Thanks for taking my call. Quick question for you. I'm a 235 officer, and my question is, in the line of work, if I literally have to draw on somebody and actually shoot them, where do I stand? Am I considered law enforcement, or am I considered a private citizen?
Well, you have your Act 235 training, right?
Correct.
And an Act 235 is actually usually what? For people who do, if I can describe it right, like private security or other things. So you're not technically necessarily a law enforcement officer, but you have specialized training to carry a gun as part of your job.
Correct.
Are you law enforcement, or how are you going to be treated at that point? I think because of your Act 235 training, if you're on the job, you're going to be held to that standard. If you're off the job, I don't know what the law says about that.
Right. As far as I know, off the job, you're just a Joe citizen like anybody else.
Right.
And with the castle law, that obviously kind of changes things. But my concern is because I'm trained, the state and federal background checks been cleared, and I've been certified, and blah blah blah. That's just what that was my question.
Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah. My thought on the matter is you're not going to be subject to any additional liability, except that it's going to be easy to make an argument that you should have known better if you did something wrong.
Right.
But I don't think it enhances your liability.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks for the call.
No problem. So 540-0580, if you have a financial question, you want to talk about retirement, you want to talk about whether you should be hoarding gold, as talk radio seems to think you should, based on the ads I hear on here.
Well, or they can call in and what they think about Harrison being let go by the Steelers today. That's fine too. That goes.
How do you feel about that?
He's 35 years old. Had a couple more years left on his contract. Has had a lot of ailments. Steelers need to get down to that salary cap. I'm not against it. I was all willing for them to let go of some veterans, and that's just where it's just a business. You got to turn over. You got to get younger in the NFL.
The Steelers. Come on now. Who likes the Steelers?
Okay, well, let me give you this one then. Are you following anything about that chief of police situation in Pittsburgh?
No.
Oh, boy, that's getting nasty. Where the dummy accounts were set up in a credit union, and the mayor's security as well as the chief of police and some others were using the credit cards.
Well,
FBI was brought in.
Now this I get this a lot in jury trials. The Commonwealth always says, and why would the police officer lie? He has nothing to gain by it. and I want to be like, listen, police officers are like lawyers, auto mechanics, the guy working the board here in the radio. I mean, they're like anybody else in the world, perfectly capable of saying or doing anything if push comes to shove. And most interestingly to me is, because you're going to become the chief of police or get promoted through the legal system because you never win cases, because you never make good arrests, and because you lose all your jury trials. So I always chuckle but that argument seems to appeal to juries. What I always like to say to the juries is, I even represent a lot of police officers, sometimes in their divorces, sometimes when they've killed their wives, sometimes when they've involved in a bribery scheme, which is why that reminded me of that.
It's pretty ugly there. The mayor is not seeking another term, and this is the same mayor that was on Letterman and some other shows as one of the youngest mayors of a big city. It's the hot button story in Pittsburgh right now.
That's interesting. I got somebody who wants to talk to you. Ben, you want to talk to Mark?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, give us your question, then we're going to go to break, and then Mark's going to answer it again after the break.
All right, that's fine. I just had a question about an initial financial plan consultation. I'm actually a public school teacher, and I don't know about putting all my eggs in the pension basket at this point. And I was just wondering what an initial consultation for a financial plan ballpark would cost.
All right, Ben, hold on. We got to have a cliffhanger here. When we come back from the break, Mark will answer your question.
Thanks.
Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here with Mark Virginis.
How you doing, Carl?
Good. How are you, man?
All right,
Ben.
Yes.
What were you going to ask Mark? You were asking him what it would cost to get an initial consultation.
Right. I've been thinking about retirement increasingly, and I know I should probably have a financial plan in place, and just wondering what an initial consultation or building a financial plan with a professional would cost me.
Well, I'll tell you the way I operate, and I'll give you the difference between an insurance agent or someone just calls himself a financial advisor versus a planner and so forth. The initial consultation with me is always free because I never know what path we're going to go and whether you're going to like me or I want to work for you.
Right.
So there's a little bit of relationship building that goes on at that first meeting. Typically, from a planning standpoint, I charge. It depends on the level of difficulty, if that makes sense to you.
Sure.
Because some people come to me and say, I'm retiring and we're going to be moving to Florida, so we got to do some estate planning along the way, and we're going to have some unique, interesting things here. So we're going to ask you to quarterback a situation with an attorney, maybe an attorney down there, attorney up here, and an accountant. So my fee for an hourly rate would be $150 to $250 an hour if I'm just doing the planning. If someone has said to me, no, look, I want you to do the planning, but I have these investments over here or my retirement over here, I'm looking to get some guidance to move those over to you, then I would not charge you for the planning. Okay. I just think that's double dipping, in my opinion. I don't want to be greedy about it. I'll charge an asset-based fee, so I'll charge an annual fee on the assets under management. So if you make money, I make money. You lose money, I lose money. So it's more transparent that way. And we're all in it together, as opposed to, separating, I'm going to charge you a fee over here, I'm going to give you this nice leather-bound book, and here's a plan that you're never going to read, except for the first 6 pages. And by the way, I'm still going to charge you on your investments. That's just my own personal belief, because I don't have a lot of the bricks and mortar that a lot of the big banks or a lot of the big brokerage firms have to do. I'm independent. I'm affiliated with the national, actually second largest firm, but they're they're my back office, so to speak. I could do what I want to do.
Okay. Yeah, my wife and I were actually started the process with sort of a friend who introduced us to another professional, but once we got the process started, we realized that he was more of an insurance broker than anything else.
And that's and they're my brethren as well, but sometimes they forget that you're the client, you're the customer. Let's do what's right. Let me ask the questions. I'll shut up. You guys talk. They get into a situation where they seem to be hawking more product as opposed to just listening and doing what they should be doing.
Yeah, that's the situation that we felt we were in. But, maybe I'll give your office a call and we'll see what we can work out.
Ben, before you go, I'll have Mark give you the contact information.
Directly to me is 509-4521, and you can find us online. Just look for the bright orange logo, Mirus. Think of the word miracle. That's actually where it comes from, the Latin word, MIRUS, Financial Partners, and partners is plural. .com.
So I'll tell you guys a funny story. Mark has a beautiful office. I mean, absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
And he has a theme. He likes orange is his color. So you quite often find him in an orange tie. There are orange gumdrops in the office.
They make the rotation. The orange ties make the rotation.
They
make the rotation.
There's a lot of neat orange accents. And then once in a while when you see Mark featured like in a magazine, they'll pick up on that and put in some of the orange as well. I've seen a few of those pieces. Even did a piece about your love of cigars, if I recall right, in one of the magazines from Lancaster.
Yes, they did. In fact, it was Fine Living Lancaster, and they actually took it was very creative. They did smoking section with the smoke that comes up from the cigar above my head. But yeah, I mean, Carl knows I do like a nice cigar here and there.
What's your particular brand of cigar, if you don't mind me asking?
If I can get my hands on it, it's Opus X. Which is by Fuente, but they're really hard to find. There's only a couple stores locally that have them.
Right.
So whenever I get a friend that goes up to Vegas, I say, "Here's $200. Go to Fuente store and the Caesars and see what you can get for that." Yeah, but locally, Padron.
Yeah.
Padron.
The other thing I'll point out is, and I just thought this was really funny. So, Len, a long time ago, we did the Rominger Law website that we have currently. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They put up some dummy images because they were teasing it out. And I look at the one image, and there's a picture of Mark in there. and what it was, there's another guy in the building who has a different office who did a website with the same company, apparently, and they had Mark pose for one of the photos for that to make it look like the guy was busy or something. I don't know. But it made me laugh just because I'm like, wait a minute. What are the odds of me seeing somebody I know as well as I know you in the dummy photo, you know?
That is hilarious, and I'd like to know the company that did that for you.
That's 717.
They owe me some money.
Yeah, 717 Studios, and they owe you money now. That's right. And actually, that's Zach over there, and they do a really good job. And we're very happy with our website. So,
all
right. Well, hey, thank you, Ben.
Gentlemen.
All right, Ben. Take care. Yeah, Mark. Hopefully, he'll come see you because I was just so you hear some of these other financial advisors, and there's one in particular I'm thinking of. I'm not going to name by name. Just how he points out that it's somehow horrible that a person would take their fees out of the transactional portion. But for a lot of people, it's kind of like a contingency fee case. For a lot of people, they don't have a lot of money. They can't spend $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 to have you draw up a master plan.
Right.
On the other hand, if you could manage their assets and you could make that money over time through managing their assets, it's easier for them to get your expertise and afford your expertise. So I don't see that as a one-way street. I think if I was worth $10 million, right, I should probably just hire somebody and pay them hourly to work on my stuff rather than a percentage because it makes sense for both. Makes sense for me anyhow.
Right.
But when you're worth $50,000 or $22,000 or $8,000 or negative $100,000, it doesn't make sense to. You're not going to be able to pay hourly.
Right. It comes down to the advisor, the planner, or the person you're working with. Did they describe to you how they're getting compensated? I mean, when you're interviewing someone like me, that should be one of the questions you ask me is, how am I paying for this? How are you compensated? And I'm sure you get that a lot, Carl, in your business. Is it contingency? Is it an hourly fee?
Yeah, and we change it from time to time depending on what the client wants and what works for both of us. And I once had a client say to me, And I just love this. Is priceless. I explain everything to her. It's going to be a third or it's going to be hourly, and here's what it would be if it's a third, and here's what it's going to be if it's hourly. And she says, well, can I decide when the case is over? and I'm like, no. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, because in one, I'm accepting risk.
Right.
In the other one, I'm not accepting risk. And what you have to understand is, in one, what you're accepting is you're accepting more risk in one than the other. And I'm accepting more risk in one than the other. But in the one, I'm making it affordable for you if you can't afford an hourly fee. On the other hand, I mean, I once did a case, and I told the secretary, I said, these are the things that'll drive you nutty as a lawyer. I think I charged about $1,000 an hourly for somebody. He was a business client. I don't mind. I mean, but you're like, I go, these guys came to me, and they thought they owed this other guy $40,000. And I read the contract, I wrote a few letters, and now the other guy's paying them $40,000. And I'm like, so I just made an $80,000 swing for these guys. It only cost them $1,000. And I laughed about it, but it's a good point that getting a lawyer or an advisor or somebody who knows what they're doing, because the even better part of that story is there were 3 guys who owned the business, okay? And they bought it from another guy. And that's the one who called them up and said, you still owe me this extra $40,000 under the contract, and here's why.
Right.
One guy wanted to pay it. One guy didn't. And one guy didn't want to get a lawyer at all. And the other guy said, well, we should get Carl. And they had a big fight over. And finally, the third guy said, well, I don't know what we should do. And, yeah, go ahead and talk to Carl and we'll see what we should do. But my point on it is they were actually at the point where they almost paid it.
Right.
And had they not gotten some simple legal advice and help, because I figured it out within about 5 minutes that they didn't owe anything. But as I read a little deeper, I realized, wait, they weren't getting everything they should have out of the contract and the language, and we completely turned it around on the other guy, and he ended up paying. And my point on that just is that they almost, 3 business guys almost collectively didn't consult a lawyer, and that's the value of going to somebody who understands these things or knows these things before you make a big, before you pay somebody $40,000, why not spend a couple $100 to make sure you actually have to pay it? They just got extra lucky and ended up getting money out of the deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I could charge a fee for assets under management, $25,000 and up. But there's a lot of folks out there that don't have that kind of money just to come and see me.
Right.
So we can work on a transactional base or commission base, and I explained that what that means. And then once we get to that $25,000 threshold, I believe, and I show them that they will save money. Because fees matter. But, I appreciate you having me on today, Carl, and it looks like we're coming up on a 3 o'clock hour.
And now I got a Jen, do you have a question for Mark before he goes?
No, not financial for you, Carl.
All right, shoot real quick. But, Mark, thank you for coming on. People can find you on my Facebook page, or they can call your number at
509-4521.
All right, and Jen, what do you need to know?
A civil lawsuit. How do you determine if it's worth suing somebody? We definitely have a case. A guy beat up my husband, aggravated assault, total stranger. But how do you determine if it's worth suing them, if you're going to get anything out of it?
We do a little asset background on them. Get a hold of me off the air, 241-6070, 241-6070, and I'll explain to you how we do it. And that'll be a free consultation, Jen. So there you go. RomingerLaw.com. Of course, I'll be here next week answering your legal questions. Join me on Facebook as well. But again, the website is RomingerLaw.com, or the law office number is 717-241-6070. See you next week.